Hello everyone, good afternoon. We're back today to build another page. This page here was the one I did on my last video called the Floral Gate. And as you can see, we've got a little town here with a flower gate, and I showed you how I built the pillars. And then the gate opens so you can walk down the little alleyway of houses. Showed you how we built the little hills of lace. And I'll show you that a little bit closer. These are little lace elements that came out of the books that I actually used as snowdrifts. So you can use things that aren't normally what they're represented as to represent something else. So the books that I used are these by Marta, and all my little scraps are falling out, as you can see. I forgot to tuck them in, and I will show you that here since that happened. I've got scraps and things that I've used, but I created this pocket in the front of the book. And I did demonstrate how I made these pockets on each of my books in the previous video. But basically I cut part of a page and I glued down these two sides and on the bottom. And what that does is it creates a pocket for all your little scraps. And so I'm going to put these away because I won't be using any of these today. I've already gone through these and gotten some things out. So these are the books that we're actually using. These two books by Marta Lepkowska from Maremi's Small Art. It's this one here, Illustrazioni, Winter Stories and Backgrounds. And then we have Essenziali, Backgrounds, Whispers of Winter. So these are fun books in which to work because there are so many images. Small, large. I mean, you can see the characters. And these little scraps do not want to stay put. They're being ornery. Okay. So you can see all the different sizes of characters. And I have done a flip through on all of Marta's books on a previous video. So if you want to look at those, you can see what all is in these books that you can play with. So this one here basically is our last video where I made the floral gate going into the city. It opens and closes, and I show you how I did that. So we're going to go on to our next project. Let me get this to close properly so it won't bend. So the books that we're using today are these two. Now, you're going to get to see a piece of the book that I used because I tore off the back cover. I'm actually using the back cover today, and you'll see why. It's a beautiful image. So let me get this weighted down a little bit. So these two books, you see how this back image of this book has these little scenes on it where you can cut things out and use them. You don't want to because they're so beautiful, but I encourage you to do so because they're so wonderful to use. So the elements that we're using today, This is the back cover of that previous book, and you can see why I want to use it. It is just beautiful. And I'm going to get our other piece here as well. Now today, I'm going to be showing you different things that I'm going to do in order to get characters embedded in a background. And when I say embedded, I mean instead of the characters sitting on top of the background, I'm going to show you how to embed them in the scenery in which you're working with. So this is more of a tutorial as well as creating an art journal page. So we've got wonderful characters here that I have already cut out. As you can see, we've got these little beauties here, and they're all going to be doing different things. So I'm going to show you how to put them into the background and make a montage or collage out of them. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get my background on there. Now part of this I will have to cut because it is a little too large. And you can see all the beautiful details that Marta has put in her imagery that made these backgrounds just pop. And they're so much fun to use. Okay. So what I normally do to get this to be exactly the size I want it is I fold it. And I do apologize for my craggy voice. It's still getting better from when I was sick. So I appreciate your patience. It's still a little bit froggy, but I'm feeling so much better. So I just rock it back and forth and bend it. And then I'm going to actually tear it. This back cover is a cardboard, so it's a little bit more difficult to tear. Okay, now this piece is perfect. I can use it for something else. So I'll set it aside. So now I'm going to get this glued down. But I want to be strategic because I'm going to embed some characters into this background. So I don't want to glue everything completely down. As you can see, I've already fussy cut an area in which I'm going to embed a character. So I don't want to put any glue around here because I want it mobile so that I can lift it up when I need it. Now this is cardboard, this back cover. So it is a little harder to work with than the actual paper. But that's okay, we're gonna get it to work. It just takes some manipulating. I'm going to let that tack for just a moment. This glue is wonderful, but sometimes on your harder elements, it needs a few minutes to tack to be able to adhere, whether it be rhinestones or gold elements or cardboard. Now there are several areas on here in which I'm going to embed characters. I did a lot of fussy cutting ahead of time so that you guys wouldn't have to sit here bored watching me cut all these beauties out. So I did do a lot of work ahead of time, gathering materials, trying to decide what I wanted it to look like and what I wanted it to be. So we're creating a scene here where the fairies are at rest. So what do the fairies do when they're at rest? You're about to find out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and glue this down. I left this here intact on purpose because I'm going to show you how we're going to deal with that. It was for demonstration purposes. Okay. So this is a part of the window. It's a part of the page. So you can leave it there. But you see the edge of the page is a very sharp transition from this to this. So how I'm going to soften it is I fussy cut all along this area here so that when I remove it, you can see the difference. Do you see how the transition softens? So this is with the side piece on, and this is with it off. Do you see how you get a softer transition? So I'm going to actually remove that. Now this will make a beautiful scrap. It's even got some lace on the other side for another project, so I will save that. But there's your soft transition right there. And you just fussy cut some of the images out, and you then get a softer transition. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take this little jar, and I'm going to show you not only how to tip the lid off the jar, or actually tip the lid off the jar. We're going to remove the lid but leave it on slightly. We're going to tip it up so it becomes open. We're going to have a fairy inside. We're going to have this little beauty inside. And we're going to have this little fairy tipping the lid off of the jar. So I'm going to show you how we're going to accomplish that. Now before I put the fairy in the jar, I did not do anything ahead of time. I wanted to show you how if you just put the jar on top, you see it looks like it's just laying on top of the paper. It looks like paper on paper. But if you fussy cut part of the rocks and tuck it in, and then this covers up this hole right here as well, you tip it in. So it's behind the rock. And I'll lift that up so you can see that. So this is the image on top. And this is what happens if you tuck it in. And all I did was fussy cut around these rocks. And that allows you to embed things in scenery that makes it look like it is really there. It adds dimension to your pieces. So what I'm going to do next, now that I showed you that, is I'm going to remove the lid off the jar. But not all the way. I'm being very strategic where I cut, because I still want it to look like the jar is intact. So you have this little tiny piece here. Now I've got to be very careful that I don't and what I'm seeing now is, in order to get this to come up, I'm going to have to take it off the jar. Because I'll show you what I'm going to do with it. Okay, so there's the jar. I'm going to trim it slightly so it's even. Okay, so there's our jar. We're going to tip it. Here's the lid. I'm going to trim some of the white areas off. So they're not so glaring. So this is the lid. But we're going to tip it like this. And then we're going to add our beautiful fairy on the end. Where she's tipping the lid off the jar. So her little feet, she's on her tippy toes. Her little feet are tipping the lid off the jar. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. But before I do that, I realize I've got to get the little fairy inside the jar. If I glue this down, I'm not going to have enough room to work. And I'm going to show you how to fussy cut around these elements so that I can embed her into the jar. So instead of her looking like she's sitting on top of the jar, I'm going to embed her so she looks like she's sleeping inside the jar. Now, if you wiggle cut, and this is not a technical term, you wiggle your scissors slightly, your images become jagged, but in such a way that they're jagged according to what you're cutting. So you think you're ruining the image, but you're really not, because as soon as you glue it, the seams come back together and you can't tell that it was originally cut. Okay, so I did not cut all of it, just part of it. Okay, So let's tip our jar. And again, this is what she looks like on top. And when I embed her in, she looks like she's sleeping inside the jar. Do you see the difference? And then when I glue that back on top, it looks like she's in the jar with the snow and the flowers. So there she is there. And there she is there. Okay, so let's get this done. And I have to be very careful not to get any glue around here, or I won't be able to tuck her in. I want to make sure her wings are inside the jar and not hanging out. So you see how she's tucked in? Now I can glue this around her. And she is now inside the jar. Now if you wanted to fog it with some acrylic white and water, you could fog it so it really looks like she's behind glass. But we're not going to do that today. We're just going to leave it as is. Okay, now let's put the lid so that it's coming up off of the jar. And I'm going to attach it just here on the corner. Because we're going to have this beauty tipping it up. You want to make sure that the lid is aligned with the lip of the jar so it looks believable. Now that I've got that the angle that I want it, I'll glue the rest of it down. So she's on her tiptoes, dancing on the lid. So you can look at the images as they are and decide how you want to use them. Get creative. Marta's given us a lot of images in different and varying poses. So you see how she blends in with the background that she was not originally on. So now she's tipping the jar. Okay. So the next one we're going to do is this little beauty right here. She's about to sip her little hot chocolate with her whipped cream on top. And we're going to sit her in and amongst these mushrooms. So if you leave her like that, you can see how she sits on top. But these mushrooms are angled in such a way that you can't really get her straight on top of the mushrooms and have it look believable. So what I did was I fussy cut the mushrooms, and I'm going to embed her slightly behind the mushrooms, leaving her dress peeking out a bit so it looks like she's actually sitting on the mushrooms, enjoying her hot cocoa. And I want her dress to come out, so I have to be careful not to glue her dress inside the crease. These are little fun characters, and I've really had to look at them and see, okay, which ones do I want to use together? Which ones look like they're doing some of the same things? I want her a little bit more forward. So her hat is not off the page. And I want her dress to be forward as well. So I have to dig it out. There we go. I want her dress on top of that mushroom, not beneath it. So I'm going to glue this down so I don't lose that. Okay. Now this cut that I cut, I can actually glue it down now that I'm done with it. So there she is, sitting on the mushrooms, enjoying her hot cocoa. She's so cute. I love the way Marta created these images. Okay, now we have another sweet little one, and she's reading. She looks like she's laying against a pillow made of clouds or snowdrifts. I believe it looks more like clouds. She's reading, and we're going to put her over here. Now you see, if I put her over here, she looks like she's just sitting on top of the paper. But we're going to embed her as well. Behind these flowers, making it look like she's got a really cute tucked in position where she's resting amongst the flowers, reading her book. So again, here it is where she's laying on top. And there it is where she's tucked in. Now I can have the pillow kind of coming out a little bit. And I think I may do it like that. So let's get her in there snuggled. So you want to cut out a little bit more than you may actually see. So she's tucked in reading her book. So this is going to be Fairies at Rest. So what do fairies do when they need a rest? These are all their little activities. Now what I want to do is I want to address this area up here. And I've got a piece of a background. The back has some lacy, snowy areas with some music notes. And then this side has got some lace. And I'm hoping the camera picks up the detail. You see how some of it looks like trees. The lace, it's got swirly bits. It's just beautiful the way Marta created it. Okay, so we're going to place that right up here. But I'm going to actually, I cut out another piece of lace. This came from this area right here. So you can see the lacy trees. You can use that as a background behind a village, behind some houses, like I did in my previous one. I did do that. So I'm going to put this here, but rather than this cut edge, I want to tear it so it's a little bit more organic. So I'm just going to tear it a tiny bit. And these are decisions that you can make on how to soften an edge. Do you see the difference between the edge, how sharp and how craggy this one is? This one ends up being softer. And you can use your fingernails to guide where you want to rip, so you don't rip too much. And another way that you can rip too that adds interest is let's rip right here. I'm gonna rip right there. I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna add this up here and let you see a little bit more of the lacy. And then I'm gonna show you how I deal with that. So let's get that down. With paper, you can rip it and tear it and fold it and wrinkle it. You can do all sorts of techniques with it. Now, because there's imagery on the background, you can roll it. You can leave it like that. You can make it even more raggedy. Just keep making it raggedy. In different strategic places, you can fold it over. You can rough it up and roll it. So that you add some interest. It doesn't have to be straight across or just a slight rip. Just keep ruffling it and playing with it, tearing it. It adds interest to an edge. That's the best thing about Marta's images, having something on the front and the back, is when you roll it over after tearing it, you get an image coming through, and this is some music notes. So that works out really well. I'm going to take this little crystal ball that was right at her feet, and I'm going to place it right here for interest, for that corner. I hope you guys have enjoyed this today. I have. I love to teach what I've learned. And how did I learn most of these techniques? I just played. Get your things and just play. If it doesn't work out, you know that doesn't work. Do something else. Now we've got some stars that are falling that I'm going to add to this corner to cover over these two edges coming together. And this is from a whole nother piece. So save your scraps, because you never know how you can use them and add some interest and beauty where it wasn't part of the original page. So we've got the stars coming down. And then I have another one as well. Originally, I was going to have the stars spilling out of the jar, but I changed my mind. So right now, we're just going to add these to this area here for interest. So these are ways you can blend if you don't use acrylics or your mixed media. You can blend by putting images on top of images that go over images. I'm ruffling this up just a little bit more. Okay, there they are. Fairies at rest. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have enjoyed your time here with me. I hope that you were able to see how you can use your images in a way that they weren't originally set up to be used. Get creative, have fun. Let me move my big ugly thumb so you can see. So play with your images. Get things and put things behind windows, behind flowers, in and amongst mushrooms. Enjoy the things that you build. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate every one of you, and welcome to all those who are brand new. And I will see you on the next one.